Oh, sorry. Hello, everybody. Um, Hello, everybody. Um, Welcome to Digging In with Dr. P. I'm Dr. Power, and we're going to be talking about some current events and stuff today. Just letting everybody filter in. It seems that we had a little delay with the broadcasting, so I hope everybody's having a good Wednesday tonight. 6:15 on the East Coast. And I guess we'll jump into the Michigan State shooting that just happened. Three were dead, five were injured. This actually affected me because the gunman targeted schools in New Jersey, and so basically every school in New Jersey had like a lockdown drill today. So that was interesting. But he was from Ewing, which is pretty close, relative. But yeah, so it restarted the gun violence debate that most mass shootings do, like Oxford, uh, Uvalde. Yeah, it restarted the gun violence debate and how to keep guns out of the hands of crazy people. But no one has a solution for that. Um, yeah, that's all the developments. No one's really sure why as of yet or what he aimed to accomplish. Uh, Whenever he just stepped, he was just at the campus, began firing on people. It was actually the 5 year anniversary of the shooting in Parkland, Florida, and it was the 67th mass shooting of the country or of the year so far, and it's February 25th, according to the Gun Violence Archive. This is the first this year at a college and university so far, and it was pretty. It hit home for a lot of Michiganders, I believe, as they just had the Oxford shooting where a child took their parents' gun to school and fired on classmates even after being searched. And this comes about a week or two after the 6-year-old in Virginia shot his teacher. So yeah, gun violence is real, pretty rampant. Um, yeah, still a lot of calls to do something at least on the state level in Michigan, and they're just trying to uh wrap their head around the problems. Pretty systemic. He had ties to Ewing in New Jersey, but he hasn't lived there in a while, so he's not. No one's really sure why people targeted why he targeted those schools. And yeah, he was previously convicted of having a firearm without a license or like the right to own it. So that does show that that does show that you know uh the laws aren't really working. We can go on to our next topic. I bet you guys have been hearing the news about Florida rejecting the AP African American Studies course. So Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, he's actually running for president in 2024. He rejected the African American Studies course. If you have any comments on this, just put in the comment section, and we can talk about it. But yeah, he rejected the original AP African American Studies course based on it included Black queer studies, Black feminism, Movement for Black Lives, or also known as BLM, Black feminism, and discussed reparations. Also, a big thing it was that it discussed critical race theory. Um, and if you don't know, critical race theory is basically just talking about how racism isn't just something that people see, or it's like in there, it's actually embedded into like the laws and legal system of a place. So like critical race theory, even though, and it's very controversial because people don't really want to admit that racism's in the like everything in our society. So it's a very hot topic, especially in Florida right now. um it also talks about black communism, and it talked specifically about Marxism Leninism, which was like basically the original form of communism made by Karl Marx in about the 1900s, and the one that spread to the Soviet Union, which America really disliked during the Cold War. So that's a very big no-no to teach to American children in Florida, apparently. It tried to compare, or it Ron DeSantis said that African American AP African American Studies compared the Black Panther Party, the one that was basically like the paramilitary group that was causing havoc for civil rights. They were it compared them to the Marxism Leninism ideology, and that the goal was to overthrow the American government. So that's why they choose, or that's why many Florida officials have reservations against this course, because they believe that teaching this is trying to incite kids to overthrow the government. Though it is a history course, but um, that's just how they see it. Uh, the College Board has revised it and took out a bunch of the provisions that had Florida officials kind of worried, because if you think about it, College Board is just they just like money, and so uh, they just need to get this course passed so they can have more registrations for exams and whatnot. So um, they gutted a lot of the course, especially the post 60s, because African American Studies course. If you read into the CED, the like course description, it basically goes all the way from the Middle Passage. Even before the Middle Passage, it talks about like ancient African civilizations and how like colonialism started, and then it talked all the way through the Middle Passage into slavery and post-slavery, post-civil. It very goes very into depth into the American Civil War, especially from the perspective of Black Americans, African Americans. And then after that, it goes into the like Black codes and the Jim Crow era of American history, which is kind of like the foundation of the critical race theory stuff that people don't like, because many see critical race theory as a historical thing. Like a lot of white people, they feel it's okay to speak about Black codes or Jim Crow or racism in the past, because they believe that it's history. However, when you bring those traditions, like not like Christmas tradition, but historical traditions into contemporary times, and then you see how Black codes translated into redlining, which translated into like food deserts that you still see today, then that's kind of how critical race theory is. So it's kind of just the extenuation and kind of forgot the word for it, euphemisms that racism hides in today, which people don't really want to be exposed. This is Ron DeSantis and the Florida government. They passed a bunch of kind of restrictive school laws, the Stop Woke Act, which said the Stop Woke Act basically said that schools can't really teach like children that anyone is inherently racist or responsible for like crimes just because their skin color. So you can't. So even though this kind of sounds like, what does this really mean? It's basically like just an attempt to portray white people as, you know, not inherently like just because their ancestors are bad doesn't mean that they are bad, which I bet many would agree with. However, it's kind of painting a narrative that, you know, the politicians that are still alive to this day, and the politicians that are still alive to this day that you know, voted against, you know, Civil Rights Act or civil rights, they're not really inherently racist just because of their color. So yeah, and also the Don't Say Gay Act was passed by Florida, which was you can't really speak about LGBTQ issues. So the Black queer studies and the Black feminism and that type of stuff was really shot down by that act, and it's being fought in the courts right now. Um, Happy Black History Month to you too. A Black figure, historical figure that inspires me. How and why? There's a few that inspire me. Uh, there's a lot that of Black figures that people don't learn in history classes. Everybody learns about the Frederick Douglasses or the Harriet Tubmans of the world, but you don't really learn about the Ida B. Wells. And Ida B. Wells said every Black family should carry a Winchester rifle, and a Winchester rifle is basically just a long rifle used for home defense. Because during that time, this was about the during Reconstruction. However, it was about like 1880s, and she said every Black family should own a Winchester rifle to protect themselves from the discrimination and disenfranchisement that they faced. Um, Another one, maybe there was one person. Sorry, I forgot their name, but they went against literacy tests, and I believe literacy tests are made to fail. Like, if you would put one on, let me see if I can put one on the screen. I don't believe I can right now. However, if you look up like a literacy test that African Americans had to take just to go vote, uh, I believe about 90% of people would fail it because it was genuinely made to trick people on purpose. And there's just a bunch of people that overcame it and continue to exercise their right to vote. To keep going, yeah. So that was a hot topic. African American Studies course. Sorry, it threw me a little off track. There's a new development in the case with the Oxford shooting and the parents who were found guilty of bringing the gun to school for their child. So that's pretty interesting. There's a lot of solidarity right now. Though the shooting in Michigan State has caused a bunch of, you know, uncertainty. Oh, we can get back to that. Do you think people of color today value the right to vote? I believe not just people of color, but everybody in America takes the right to vote for granted because most generations alive today, like the majority of Americans, Gen X, uh, millennials, Gen Z, Gen Alpha. I guess Gen Alphas can't vote, and Gen Z barely can vote. I can barely vote, but a lot of people today don't really understand. You know, they didn't really have to like fight the vote, so people take it for granted. Like American voter turnout for like presidential elections, the big ones, only about like 30-40%. So, not just people of color, but just all Americans, because some countries people still don't have the right to suffrage. Um, but especially people of color. I believe, voter ID laws, they're still uh type C. This is an example of critical race theory that people don't really want to be taught in schools. Like I said, the poll taxes, the literacy tests that was during the Jim Crow era long, long ago still happens today. Voter ID laws. If you understand what like voter ID laws are made to do, they're supposed to protect American elections. Though, if you think about how hard it is to get a driver's license if you lose it. That's basically what a lot of people have to go through because like like in Arizona and Texas where they have voter ID laws, you'd have to have a valid, identification issued by the state, which can cost upwards of like $50 in months and weeks. And people can't really take time to leave their jobs to have an appointment to get an ID. And so it's really just a continuation of critical race theory and the disenfranchisement of colored people while a long time ago, which is still happening today. So yeah. From your standpoint, what needs to be done to bring people out to vote on the local election? Probably just more awareness. Like I said, even for the big elections, only about 30 to 40% of Americans vote. It's drastically less in state and local elections. Excuse me. What do you think? Have you like ever really voted for? Have you ever voted in like a off presidential year? So like not during a presidential election. And if you have, like, have you even voted in like for your sheriff or your town commissioner or your school board or anything? Because a lot of people don't, especially people of color. So that's why when people don't vote, you're not represented. So that's why a bunch of spaces, especially like non-mainstream spaces, are still predominantly white, even though that's not always particularly representative of the population. So just more publicity, more awareness surrounding the campaign. It also has to be a lot less polarized. A lot of states or a lot of like local elections, since they don't really have corporate donors or big, sponsorships, a lot of local elections are very grassroots, which means they don't really have to give in to the big polarization that big politicians in the state and federal level do. So, they're very grassroots. There's not, they don't really hold themselves to the D or R. Most, actually, fun fact, most local politicians are actually independent and are a lot or extremely moderate in most cases, or especially like most like economic cases. Socially, it may depend on like the zip code, like the if you live in like a rural town or city, because just demographics and immigration. But yeah, just more publicity for that. Local elections are very underrated. A lot of people don't really understand how their government works. They were like if you blame the president for a mask mandate, especially that's what a lot of Americans did during like 2020. That's not really true. President has no say over a lot of mask mandates. That's more your governor. And so, also same for like COVID restrictions and lockdown, president was taking a lot of flack for just kind of when he had like no control over whether governors wanted to keep their states open or not. So, a lot of people just have to understand how their governor works, which goes to like, public education, mandatory civics classes, mandatory government classes, as like graduation requirements. But most states don't really require that. They require, maybe like a year or two of history. and that's about it. So that doesn't really empower people to learn how their government works. Whenever you register to vote, you do it via driving. So if you never get a driver's license, um, you don't really go vote, or you don't really understand like how to register to vote or not. So especially in like cities, people don't really aren't really required to drive in cities. Then you don't really have to you don't really understand the process of how to vote. So yeah, it should be implemented more into public schooling, just so the masses can learn. Because that's like the most effective way to, you know, teach education. It is school. So, or just indoctrinate. I don't know. That's a big word, extreme loaded word, but yeah, indoctrinate a population into voting. So yeah. Um but yeah, critical race theory, I say that's the biggest thing that's been happening, in this Black History Month, so you should talk about it. A lot of people have heard what critical race theory is, but even though I already talked about kind of what it is, a lot of people still don't really understand exactly how it works. So, it's kind of just refusing. That's why it's so controversial. You see probably on TV like critical race theory taught in schools causes outrage. So, yeah, hopefully you have a better understanding what it is. Uh, the like another example is like redlining. If you know what redlining is, it's basically just denying it's kind of a bigger issue. It's like if you think of neighborhoods, you have white neighborhood, you have ethnic neighborhoods, also known as ghettos. But like a ghetto isn't really like ghetto as in how you think of it, like ratchet. But a ghetto is kind of just like an ethnic neighborhood, like a Polish ghetto, or like think of like Jewish ghettos in World War II. So you have like affluent ghettos. Like ghetto doesn't always mean like poor, but like there's white ghettos everywhere. Like think of it like subdivisions in a neighborhood. So back in the day, like during the 1930s, uh, these ghettos were being made to, especially after like integration. So these ghettos were being made to keep Black people and other minorities out. So banks would, yeah, that was a like big way to talk about redlining. But yeah, banks would basically deny Black people loans to buy houses and get mortgages in these white ghettos. So fast forward to like the Civil Rights Act in 1964. Um, these ghettos they were still around, but white flight happened around this time where white people left inner cities and moved to the suburbs. So that's why today there's a lot of like crime and violence and just like it's in a lot more impoverished state, especially like inner cities. Thinking like inner city schools, they don't really have the funding needed to teach because white people left and they took a lot of money with them out to the suburbs. That's why you think of inner city like Philadelphia, but if you go out to like Gloucester City, then yeah, yeah, redlining really was very bad just for Black people in general. Um, Gerrymandering, that's like the political kind of version of redlining, as on a map. It's called redlining because if you look at like a zoning map, there would be red districts to not give mortgages to Black people. So gerrymandering is very similar to that. However, it's to kind of manipulate how political parties, or kind of manipulate how kind of congressional districts, not all just congressional, but just boundaries are made and who's going to vote where. So that kind of disenfranchises a lot of minorities and like people of color in general, just because, like I said, people, critical race theory, Black people are still held down and disenfranchised today, be it like voter suppression, um, like uh, limited poll times, just trying to restrict the vote in any ways possible. But it's just a way that racism is continued throughout the past and into the present. So, yeah, I say all that just to talk about how critical race theory and back to the AP African American Studies thing. Critical race theory is a very hot subject for a bunch of people. And so, yeah, you have proponents on trying to say that we need to teach kids about critical race theory just so they'll be educated about how racism still is today. They may see it like on TV, but they just don't understand it. And you have opponents which is trying to paint the picture that racism's over and those practices aren't happening. Let's see. White residents didn't move into those designated areas, which resulted in lower tax bases in Black neighborhoods. Most of the schools are still receiving Title I funding. Yeah, that's what I was talking about. During white flight in the 60s and the development of suburbs in American suburbia, white people, they just left the inner cities, they left cities, especially after the interstates and Eisenhower made cars very accessible and the rise of Ford. Then you can work farther from where you live. So people or white people left. And so they took all their money with them and developed new communities, gated communities. Private schools were made because of this. They wanted to keep racism or just keep a homogeneous society, which is still seen today. So yeah, there's a lot of Title I schools, a lot of underfunded schools, because they just don't simply have the money. So yeah, that's really something. I know you touch on this subject about the gun shooting. Why is it that so many youth, teens, and young adults are turning to guns to solve their problems? Second question, why are the states now trying to do something about guns before they were encouraging people to get guns? So on the first part, why is it that so many youth, teens, and young adults are turning to guns to solve their problems? That's always happened in America. If you think about it, America's a rebel country. America has guns before America existed. Guns have turned from a way to protect yourself from wild boars and bills and animals to protecting yourself from yourself and other people, and to as a strength of power. So due to the lack of mental health awareness, or just compassion and asking about people, then America has kind of resulted to violence. A lot of Americans have resulted to violence to solve issues. Think of like mass incarceration. So yeah, guns has always been there. I believe it's just more televised, or not televised, but publicized now due to social media. Because before, if this happened, in like the 70s, you'd read it in the newspaper, keep on going. You probably wouldn't even know, like whether it was a gun, killed himself, arrested, what. But it's just so dramatized now that guns are everywhere. Guns. So yeah, that's the first part. Second question is, why are states now trying to do something about guns before they were encouraging people to get guns? I've read some on this. It's actually, the mass shooting cycle. If you've seen like a mass shooting, it's a cycle. There's initially, we're in the first phase of it. It just happened on Monday. It's Wednesday. So the first cycle is, or the first part is usually, outcry for change. And then After that, politicians kind of just make statements talking about how sad it was, and then they promise change, but usually there's always some type of election, and people have to keep up appearances. But nothing really changes. Is either if there is a bill introduced in Congress, it might be just like dreaded, but dread gridlock, from opposition parties, interest groups like the NRA, National Rifle Association, Second Amendment activist groups that really love their firearms, who see, any attempt to limit firearms as a attack on their Second Amendment right. So there's not much that can do. And even if something does get passed, like the after Columbine, what was it, Clinton passed the School Free Gun Zone Act, it was deemed unconstitutional because it's really not really the federal government's job to do that, really. If you think about it, like this happened in Michigan. Gun laws are better regulated at like the state, local level because, like it's just more accessible, it's more feasible for a sheriff to get you than the federal government. Or even if something is passed, then it probably has no substance. Like the federal background bill that was passed in like 2012 after. Oh no, it was like 2017, 2015 after the Las Vegas shooting, where he shot from the balcony and killed like 500 people. Oh no, shot at 500 people at like a concert in Vegas. So not a lot of stuff, it's all a bunch of just to hold up appearances. So it's really just a big cycle. I'm not really sure how you would see the cycle end. Something drastic would have to happen politically. But yeah, it's a cycle that's been happening for the past 20, 30 years since, Columbine. I believe that was about the start of it. I can't really think of anything earlier than Columbine that started, the gun epidemic or the mass shooting epidemic in America. That wasn't really like racially motivated. But yeah, maybe it was just like a subset of terrorism. You think back to just like the rise of extremism in general. But yeah, thank you for. Oh, yeah, on. Too much social media plays a part. Mental health is real and it's happening more than ever. Back in the days, we didn't have internet and social in the social media. Now it's affecting our youth. Yes, social media very underrated. Well, it's a lot. It's acknowledged for a lot of people. Just say social media. They don't really understand what about social media causes the mental health crisis. Comparing yourself to others, just seeing the world, idolizing, wishing that was you, and comparing yourself to other people really are like leading causes. And now it's rampant among the youth, especially with the kind of fast food media that people consume, TikTok, endless scrolling, YouTube, just endless videos. It's just trained to keep you trained, designed to keep you trained. So yeah, that's really what's happening. But thank you for watching Digging In with Dr. P. I'm Dr. Power. I'm glad we had a useful discussion today. If you have any comments before I end it, just post it. But follow Change for Hope on Facebook, and the I Am Powerful Teen Summit. It'll be Saturday, February 18th at the Golden Glide Skating Rink in Decatur, Georgia. The theme is to protect yourself from gun violence, mental health, and sexual health. Protect yourself from gun violence, mental health, and sexual health. It'll be $10. Free skating, food, etc. I hope you can come. Unfortunately, I can't because I'm in New Jersey. I wish I could. Thank you. But yeah, I believe we talked about gun violence, mental health, sexual health. That's also a byproduct. But yeah, thank you. Bye bye. Thank you.